Welcome to I Heart Geek. And welcome to another episode of I Heart Geek.
Woohoo!
Yeah. This is cool. This is a research episode.
I do the cool Xena thing, but I can't do that noise. So
What is the cool Xena thing?
that fighting cry she does before she.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm not that talented.
Oh wow, we're starting off like this.
We always start off like this. Don't act surprised.
You always know when Sean's on the panel because they start out like this for some reason.
I'm like, how fast can I derail this episode?
And he didn't even have to say anything.
30 seconds tops. 30 seconds tops.
Wow. Well, I'm Dub, and I'm your writer-type guy, and we are having a fantastic episode. We're talking about weapons that are pre-modern.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll explain that more as we go, but let's get around the table real quick.
I'm Miss Geeky Page. I know about swords and stuff. That's what I got for today.
I'm Blythe, and I'm the tech guy, so this one's going to be a little bit more harder for me.
More harder?
More harder. So I'm going to bring it real far back.
Yeah. Percussion instruments only.
Yep.
That's pretty much true.
I am Sean of the House Critchfield, and I am the beard of the North.
Winter is coming.
Actually, are you north? Let's see. What I think you're facing.
I'm
East.
I'm facing south right now.
You're facing south. Okay.
Yeah, but
So
I
you're
am the
Sun
beard of the
Spirit.
North. Yes.
I
He's
don't
Sun
know.
Spirit.
Are we still quoting that show?
When are we not going to?
I've been
quote
using
that show till I die.
I've been using the titles as expletives. I've been like, Mother of Dragons.
Well, speaking of pre-modern weapons, that's actually a good way. Are they going to remake that last season like they're threatening to, or no?
No.
I've heard
They're
the
doing
rumors.
the prequel.
No,
They're going to do the prequel season.
I
so
wish
they're
they
not gonna
wouldn't.
remake
Yeah.
that last season.
They've ruined that show to such an extent.
Why would you do that?
No, they're not. It was a fan-based petition.
Yeah.
and-
Man,
When are the fans
it
not
must
petitioning about something?
It must be this chair. I'm in the PB chair. This is like the chair of unpopular opinion.
Oh no!
Because you guys are like, they ruined that show, and I'm like, I liked the last season.
Did you like
Are
the
you
ending?
serious? Did
yeah,
you?
we can. Yeah.
No, we need to talk about this for a
I
second.
didn't hate the last season. But I'm not one of those fans that I knew all of that was coming.
Yeah.
I had hypothesized all that, so it was not surprising to me.
Here's a problem with
what
that last
happened,
season.
other than Bran being king.
The things that happen in that last season are fine. It's the
The
way
execution.
that they shoehorned everything
Yeah.
into one final season. I would have been completely fine with Daenerys' descent into madness the way that it happened.
That was fine.
It was fine.
That should
but
have
I
been
wanted
that
to
way.
see it over 2 seasons. I don't want to just see it, light switch, she's bad now.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't really like
It
Twitch
kinda
if you were
was,
paying
but-
attention. No, if you're paying attention,
It was-
she's been
it
going
was too-
bonkers.
It goes from
since
so
the first
subtle.
season.
It goes
Yeah,
from so
that's
subtle that you have to pay attention to
Oh.
wow, it's in your face.
Okay, yeah,
Brick
see,
wall.
because I've been calling this since the first season when she got visibly excited when her husband killed her brother.
Listeners, pay attention. I've sown discord at the table. I'm in the PB
Yeah,
chair, and I
okay.
didn't have to say anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull back on the Game of Thrones talk now.
Here's my thing. Is that I don't think there was no way to please everyone, and I feel like they did their best. And for me, it's kind of like, well, okay, write your final season of Game of Thrones, and if it's better than theirs, then I'll tip my hat to you.
Yeah.
You know, like so.
Fair enough.
And I agree with the shoehorning comment because they were given 13 episodes.
And they're like, no, we don't need 13.
Well, because they wanted to get it finished so they could start working on Star Wars.
Which they
they're
got
not-
fired.
Which
Which
they're not
their
working on
final
anymore.
season of Game of Thrones got them fired
Yeah.
from. So it's like, you kind of did that to yourself.
Well,
So-
I've said this before. I think that it comes down to the fact that when they're following, the what's his name's work, Martin's work, it was easy, and they did a great rendition of it. When they had to write their own opinion on it, it was garbage.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where it all went to.
'Cause
Because
they
they're
needed
great at
art.
following a script. They're not screenwriters.
Yeah, and I think that Martin was twirling his mustache and knew that. Like
Oh,
towards
I'm
the
sure
end, when
he
he was
was.
like, "All right, well, you guys do it."
Yeah.
You know.
Well, because he Republican came out and said, "Oh, have you guys seen The Last Kingdom? Was way better than Game of Thrones." I'm like, "Didn't you write Game of Thrones?"
So the reason we're talking Game of Thrones in a pre-modern weapon episode is because they used to hit each other with swords.
That's
with
right.
blunt objects. Lots of fun.
Club swords.
So, okay, so kind of the era that we're looking at is basically before the advent of the modern handgun or rifle. I think what we say is the 1911 would be the cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it's before 1911 and starting at the beginning of time, and we'd actually have a couple of things that we talk about, basically the first weapons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really it's a lot more interesting a subject than I thought this was going to be. I was like, oh, this is just going to be fun because everybody knows I'm a weapons nerd. So I was like, yeah, but it's a lot deeper than I thought it was going to be.
He called himself a nerd on a Geek podcast.
Oh, well.
Do we have to fire him now? Because he's kind of the boss.
Well, if you guys want to start editing everything, you can go ahead. And
That's why I'm like, do we really just want? Let's just let it
let's
slide.
let that one slide.
I don't like editing.
I'm super excited about this one because in the theater community, I'm kind of the go-to fight choreographer.
Yes,
a
you
lot
are.
of times. So, yeah.
So how much you have to know about these different weapons to choreograph? I mean, because I know the way you use these, especially these ancient weapons, is this all kind of just your creativity, or is this study, or
It's a bit of both. I think that like you learn the fundamentals of dance so that you can choreograph a dance that is original. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of schools of thought. I think the biggest difference between using these martially and using these on stage is one discipline is to hit and one discipline is to miss,
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are like, it's cool, I'm going to be really good at this, I have martial arts experience. And I'm like, no, you're actually going to be a real pain to teach because you've trained yourself to hit, and so but I would say that principles kind of cross over a lot of them, so once you have the idea of how to use a short sword, you can apply it to everything. And then of course you're going to get people who are super specific that's not how you use a gladius. And it's like, I know, but also suspend your disbelief. We're on
That's
stage,
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
yeah,
also for the safety of the actors.
absolutely.
oh, very much so. Well, and let me get this out before we get too far into this. I don't care what your politics are. We're talking about weapons, and guns will be brought up. We're not talking politics at all, so
We're talking about pointy stuff.
we're talking about fun stuff
Yeah, and I mean, part of the biggest part of my career is to be around ancient weapons.
Yeah.
Like most of my week, I'm around people who are swinging maces and
Swords.
spears and swords.
Oh, and I'm
long
looking forward to
swords
talking
and-
to you
yeah.
about all this
Cool.
too. So we will get into that in just a minute.
Yep.
Let's kind of jump into our game show. Okay, for the game show this week, I got to do it. I only do them like once every couple months, I think.
For good reason.
Oh, shut up. Because you lose? Is that what it is?
I've only done one. I did the Two Truths and a Lie.
Oh, yep.
That's right.
And it was apparently too easy. So
No, I got it wrong,
banished.
remember? Because I had it mixed up in my head. I thought it was supposed
That's
to be
right.
2 lies and a truth.
That's right.
So this one is going to be our standard game show. We have 5 questions, and the first question will be worth 1 to 3 points, depending on what they
Million
get
points.
out of it. And this is all talking about pre-modern era weapons. So our first question: in the sport of fencing, what is the name of the 3 weapons used? 1 point for each. Courtney.
I have sword, and beekeeper mask.
Nice.
No, but that's awesome.
Dang.
I have sword, punching, and kicking.
No.
I've never seen a fencer kick anybody.
I've seen fencers get kicked a lot for some reason.
Man, I could not pull the last one. I know it, and I could not pull it out of my brain. But it's epee, rapier, and my sharpened wit.
I like that last answer,
Yeah.
Brett.
It is epee, saber or rapier,
Okay.
and foil.
Foil! Foiled!
And
Foil?
beekeeper mask.
I was foiled
It's called
again.
the real thin one. That when they hit it, it like bends, it goes. Whee!
Because it looks like tinfoil.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it's got the little
You
ball
sure
at
that's
the
not
end.
right?
Did not come up with it. Man,
It's like
That's the
Beekeeper
only one that I
mask.
knew in the.
I was
advance.
foiled.
Oh.
I see myself out.
Wah. Tip your bartender.
Try the veal.
What did the grenade get its name from? Courtney?
The pineapple-based tribe in deepest Tasmania.
That's good.
Thanks.
That's so good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Granada.
Or grenadine.
Oh, well, apparently my answer is correct because Dubs just said it. Mine was grenadine, and I say that because it was a popular mix in tiki mugs, and the grenade looks like a tiki mug.
See, I thought it looked like a pineapple.
You were on the right track. It is actually French for pomegranate because the early grenades look like pomegranates.
Oh.
With the little,
Because
Okay.
grenadine packs such an explosion of taste.
That's right. You understand me, Blythe.
Okay. Should I give the history on this one before we do it? What is the real reason for a bloodline on a sword? Now, I want to throw this in first. Everybody thinks that the bloodline is there so that blood can run out if you stab somebody. That is not why it's there. That's just a folklore. But anyway, so why is a bloodline there, Courtney?
Okay, so I took bloodline in your definition to mean the heritage of the sword.
Nope.
So it's
That's
to be
good,
able
though.
to pass it down to through time to different family members.
That's
is
only if you're a dragon rider.
That
I
is
think.
such an elegant answer, though. Like, I love that. That's really nice.
I want to give you a point for that.
I wanted to
I mean,
talk
a half
about
a point at
I wanted to
least.
talk about blood, but you're like, it's not about. I'm like, okay, well, maybe it has to do with the bloodline of passing the sword
This
down.
sword was my father's before me, and now it will be yours. I think she
Exactly.
gets a half a point for that.
I'll give her half a point because we're
Yes.
not burning up the points on this episode.
If I win from this half a point,
That would be amazing.
I won't because it's
So I want a half a point too because Courtney stole my answer because I put so that you could tell what family it belonged.
I wrote it first.
Nice.
Okay, it is so completely wrong, but I will give it to you.
To look cool, and also to make it stronger.
No, it is actually to be able to make the sword lighter without taking out any of the strength of the blade itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it takes out ounces, but that can make a huge difference depending on the sword. Makes sense? Yeah.
Interesting.
And it also makes it look cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Otherwise, it just looks like metal
a flat
flying through
piece
the
of
air.
metal.
Flapping metal.
It doesn't look aerodynamic. It looks aerodynamic and such. I don't know. What is the name of a pirate sword, Courtney?
Cutlass.
A cutlass.
Blunderbuss.
That's a gun.
A cutlass, because everything is half off.
Is this going to be the pun show? Because that's 2 already.
I'll see myself out.
And the final question, and it looks like we got a runaway here. Who came up with the practical use of gunpowder as a weapon?
I'm going to say Native Americans in the most broadest sense because I can't figure out who.
The Chinese?
The Chinese.
Yeah.
See, that makes much more sense.
Because they're the ones that actually invented gunpowder for fireworks as well.
Yeah, I didn't think of that at all.
Blythe's uncle.
He's at it again.
Was it not? It wasn't your uncle.
I
wasn't
live
my
for
No,
those
Bob's your uncle.
Bob's Trunkle.
Oh, wow. That's so bad. Okay, so our scores on this one, we have a 2-way tie for second place with Blythe and Courtney with 1.5 points.
He shouldn't get a half point because I said it first.
No. No, I want
Okay.
my half a point.
Jason, is that you? Is that you, Jason?
Right? But I'm way cuter and less hairy.
Okay, so our first place with 3 points.
Woohoo!
Do you give this one to Sean or do you give this one to Sean's magical beard?
I think this one goes to the beard in the north.
The beard in the north.
The beard in the north.
Yep, Sean's magical beard.
Outstanding.
So Sean's magical beard is is going to say the tagline in the end.
long
It's going to be awkward.
It's just gonna have the sound of a razor shaving.
No.
It's long claw.
That's what you get. That's what you win for this one. You get a free shave.
This is now we're back to Game of Thrones because they're about to kill my favorite character.
You should see the terror in his eyes right now because I'm like across the table.
Oh, I
from
wish
you.
we were on video.
Is he serious? I'm not gonna do that.
I'll see myself out.
I'm
real
running
this
as
time.
fast as I can. Okay, let's discuss why. I mean, in general, whether you are into weapons or not, why all these older weapons are just so cool. You know, I mean, for me, the very aesthetic of a lot of these, especially like, I mean, you can go in through a million different things, but let's talk swords, for instance. Just the very tactical, very.
Well, I think that the most obvious answer, you know, when someone has said something better than you, then you just quote them, is Obi-Wan Kenobi and his take on blasters.
They're clumsy.
They're crude weapons.
Yeah.
Right. Right. They, like, so a lot. I feel like, you know, it's like a lot of the more modern weapons. There's an elegance to them as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think that there is a skill and elegance to being in distance fighting, being in harm's way with the weapon. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's something.
too.
I don't want to say more romantic about it, but I mean battlefields of old days versus now, and it's horrible. I mean, it was gory and horrible, but there's something that's just so much more just primal about that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's a chance I'm going to get some hate on this, but I'm gonna throw it out there. So it reminds me of like the trolley problem. So you got the trolley problem where you got the 5 people on the one side and the one on the other, and you can pull the lever. Like the runaway trolley is going to smack one of the 2 groups, right?
Okay,
no matter
yeah,
what.
yeah.
And you can pull the lever and you can kill one.
Or
And
you can
save
kill 5.
right? And so most people will do that, right? But then the second one is you can push someone in the way of the trolley, and that will stop it from hitting the people. And most people won't push the person in the way of the trolley. And I think it's similar because I feel like with a projectile weapon, there's a disassociation between you, more of a disassociation between you and your target. Where if you've got a sword, man.
Yeah.
You're like you're right in body heat distance. You know what I mean? Like you have to be right there and present to what's happening. So
when
yeah,
it's happening.
Well, it makes war more of a personal affair. You know, it's you don't get to stand away and fire off a bunch of bullets and hope that it hits somebody. Everything is very intentional.
I love that it's a personal affair. If I ever have to get into a sword fight, I'm going to be like,
It's
I'm
a
sorry, this
personal
is something
affair.
I have to do for me.
Well, and I mean, just in terms of aesthetically, from an entertainment value, what's more fun to watch? Somebody standing back and blasting somebody away with a gun, or 2 people highly skilled with swords,
Yeah.
or hand-to-hand combat. Like, just from an aesthetic level, the stunts are much more fun and more engaging to watch.
Yeah.
You're using Benetti's defense against me, huh?
Well, and as kids, I don't know if the girls did as much, but we all played with swords, and there's just something that's
This girl did.
well, it's something that I believe is really ingrained in our DNA. You know, just these older
I
weapons.
wanted to be Robin Hood when I was a kid, so.
Yeah.
Did you do well?
Swords and bows.
Bows and swords.
You know, it's fascinating too. Regular listener Tim Burris, shout out to Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
He is actually part of a
call
group
me
called
Tim.
Arma. Yeah, he's part of a group called Arma, and it's basically what they do is they look at the old plates and they try to figure out how we really sword fought, and it's nothing like what is being choreographed.
Oh, yeah.
Like the most accurate, what was considered to be the most accurate sword fight by most people was the fight in Princess Bride, because they were actually using the techniques and the styles that they were talking about. But he says
between Indigo
That's
and
interesting, actually.
yeah,
And Wesley?
and
Okay.
Wesley, and then but now and he says that it's still completely off the mark. The fight on the bridge between Brienne of Tarth and Jamie, where they're like pushing each other's sword tips around and trying to create openings.
Yeah.
It was more like that. Like you would tangle the weapons and things like that.
Yeah.
And
you also would just hack away.
Yeah, well, yeah,
depending on the
I always assumed it was like if you watch the show Vikings, very much just just swinging for the fences constantly.
no, apparently that was considered to be peasant fighting, the way that they did that. Like, and it was more. It was very much a chess game. It was very much about bringing the swords together and then moving the swords around each other until you created an attack of opportunity and opened up and struck.
Yeah, so we're talking more on the one-on-ones, not on the war field.
I'm not sure. I'd have that'd be a good question.
Tim, if you could answer that for us, I would
Yeah,
actually love to know
please.
this. This
Yeah.
is
I wonder
interesting.
if in
I
a
wish he was on the show. I really want to go into this.
yeah.
I wonder if in a war setting it would be harder to do something like that.
Well, there's space, and you have a lot more things.
There's a lot more things going on than.
Well, there was those kind of strikes. It's just that what we think about, where people are hack, that wasn't how it worked. You know? So
Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, even a baseball bat. Have you ever swung a baseball bat for like 2 minutes? You are dead exhausted. I mean, imagine doing that with a 20-pound sword.
Yeah. Or well, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
It's one of my top 5s.
So I would like to actually hear about some of the weapons that you get to play with doing the. Can we talk about the show?
Sure.
You work at the
Tournament of Kings.
Tournament of Kings.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I only get to swing a sword one time, but I'm around a lot of the guys and in our show we have a mace, we have an axe, we have single-handed sword and double-handed swords, and we have tons of weapons. We throw a javelin at one point. We have stabs and spears. Like it's great. Swords on fire. And people often ask, they say, how do you pull off the special effect of the swords sparking when they collide? That is the strength of the fighters smacking titanium swords together.
Really?
That's what it is.
That's
awesome.
So that's not swords.
So it's definitely become a special effect in the show, but it is not rigged. There's nothing. It's just the fighters knowing how to make the swords.
Blade that makes them spark. Yeah. It's just wow. That's awesome.
So I don't know if you get a notice, but like what weapons get the biggest reaction? I mean, even from kids or adults or whatever. Which kind of weapons usually give you the best?
So there's a ball and chain that they have that is actually a ball and chain that is attached to something about the size of a Joe staff. I think the thing's about 4 feet. And they whip that thing around, and we regularly have to replace the buckler that he hits because the buckler starts to bend in half.
Ooh.
And so when he smacks it, it's one of the few times that we don't have an additional sound effect for the impact, because it's so loud that it rings through the whole theater, and that gets really good reaction.
Yeah, that's actually an instrument.
Yeah,
that's a weapon that's really always been very interesting to me. I mean, I went to the Tournament of Kings or whatever it was called in L.A. When I was a kid, and my parents actually bought me I think it's called a shepherd's mace. The one it's got the ball hanging on the short. The short stick, but that to me, and it's like a big heavy lead ball, but that's something that's always just really captured my imagination. But what is it about that will capture? I mean, because it's impractical. I mean, there's really. I mean, that's not something you could use in real life, but that's something that just really captured my imagination.
It was used in real life, and it was used because that was to cave in helmets.
Yeah.
Well,
that was the whole point, was to crush your head inside your helmet.
And the interesting thing is there's a variant. The Maori tribe used what's called basically a po ball. Po just means ball, and it's 2 sets of balls on a very long string, so it's the same kind of concept, and they throw it, and it just, if you get hit with one of those things,
you're dead.
Woo!
Yeah. The other thing I would say is that the other big one is, and it's my own fault for forgetting this, is lances. So
really?
Yeah, they love the lances in the jousting. They love that. And let me tell you, like, is the wood a softer wood? I can neither confirm nor deny, but what I can tell you is that many of our riders have cup-shaped bruises on their shoulders. And so, I mean, like, it's no joke. I've watched a guy get unseated unintentionally when they were practicing, hit just right with one of those lances and took him off the back of the horse. So, like, these guys, those fighters are no joke. It's really impressive. Did you guys know too, this is pretty cool, the salute comes from jousting?
Really?
Yeah.
I did.
So when the horse, did you know this?
Yeah.
Yeah. When the riders would ride past each other on the lease, it was considered respectful to show your opponent your eyes. It also meant that I don't fear you. So what they would do is they had the metal gloves on, so they would reach down, grab the bottom of their visor, and then lift it above their eyes to show each other their eyes.
Interesting.
And that's where the salute came from. They would ride by and salute each other.
Very cool.
Well, I got to say this one. This is just since you brought up that, there's another. How do I put it? Another thing that we like to show each other every now and again. That's a yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Family show.
I can't. I'm not putting it on air.
A little bird.
A little bird.
A bird.
A gesture. A bird gesture.
Yeah. A flipping bird
that
told him this.
That came from another armory type situation. That was for archers. Now, in England, whenever they would capture an archer, they would cut off their fingers.
Yeah.
And so
These
therefore,
especially.
when they wanted to taunt their opponent, they would show them their finger. And that's where that gesture comes from.
I could see that because of the way you hold the...
Yeah.
When you pull back the bowstring, the way you do it, and then the way you let it go, it's...
Yeah, that particular finger is critical. It's more important than the index.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about this. This isn't on our notes, but we're just gonna kind of going for it today. Where did you guys first see some of these weapons that really captured your imagination? The first one you can remember, like, oh, this really catches me. Sean, we'll go on you last. I'm sure you have a a bunch. Do you got anything, Blythe?
I'm trying to think of when the first time I would have seen, like, it had to be something medieval. Probably Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Arrows and Disney Sword in the Stone. Just kind of those things that you grow up with where it really hits like that medieval theme.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say that that's probably where it is.
So which weapons was it that really just captured your imagination first?
Probably the sword.
The sword?
Yeah, definitely the sword.
The big ones?
Because like you said, it's just, I don't even think it was just a sword in general. Like you said, when you're a kid, you see something like that and you see the choreography of whoever's sword fighting, and then you want to emulate that because it looks so cool. Like, especially you're a little kid with your friends, and then you grab, we used to do it with the gift wrapping tubes.
Oh yeah,
The gift wrapping,
The doo-doo-doos.
Yeah.
Everyone's done that.
Yeah, so
I do it with the nieces now.
just the general just general sword fighting, I think, is where that imagination was originally captured, for sure.
I'm going to have to say the old Wonder Woman TV show.
Really?
And it wasn't the swords, it was her lasso. You have to remember, when I was growing up, there weren't a lot of girls.
There were no girl cowboys.
Yeah, but there were very few females who had swords in movies. If they did, it was ironically where they would pick it up going, oh, here, you can have it. It was never, never really got to fight. So the first time I remember getting to see a female fight was Wonder Woman, and she had the gauntlets, which are based on bracers from medieval time, and then she had the lasso. So... and that would be based on ancient Greek weaponry. So
nice. I remember there was a movie in early 80s that my parents rented on VHS that really got me interested in like kind of pre-modern weapons. It was a pirate movie called Nate and Hayes. Did anybody see that movie? It was with the guy from Batman, Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones was like one of the bad pirates in it, and blah blah blah. Good pirate, bad pirate, whatever. But they had a lot of really cool sword play that really made it very interesting to me, even more than... I don't want to give that away because we're going to talk about that later. But that's probably the most interesting sword fights I'd seen at that point that made me want to... I want to, grab a stick and start beating my friends with it. And you don't ever aim for the... That's one of those unwritten rules with your friends. You don't ever aim for the person. You're aiming for their stick.
Yeah.
Which... is really weird how we all kind of set that as a unwritten rule. We never had to say it, but everyone knew. Aim for the stick.
When we used the wrapping paper tools, we aimed for head.
We didn't even with Nerf.
There was a in stage combat. There's two different styles of fighting. There's outdistance fighting and in distance fighting. And outdistance fighting is where you aim for the stick, and in distance fighting is where you, and I do this with air quotes, you aim for the person, because you're never aiming for the person. But the idea is that in distance fighting,
visually you're aiming for the person.
Your weapon could reach your opponent.
Yeah.
And in outdistance fighting, your weapon should not be able to reach your opponent.
Yeah.
So you have to be more precise and more careful in distance fighting.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was your first?
So I was always, ever since I was little, I was definitely like a sword and sandal fantasy, like cartoons, movies, all of the above. So I couldn't tell you which one because I watched tons of them, but I know the one that made me want to learn a fight was the end fight in Lady Hawk.
Oh,
That's a good one.
Yeah. The end fight in Lady Hawk is gorgeous. That last move, it's so good. I'm not going to spoil her. If you've not seen Lady Hawk, you have
Check it out.
It's just
I would have thought you would have said Highlander.
Oh, really? To be honest with you, I didn't mind it, but I wasn't
your
crazy
thing?
about it.
Yeah.
No. No, yeah.
Well, just the Fantastic Queen soundtrack really makes you want to pick up a sword.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, man.
It's fantastic. So there's a movie that I want to bring up. We talked about it a little before we started recording, but I think as a modern take on these classical weapons, I think one of the best ones that we've seen probably in the last, since Braveheart, would be the Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. Everything, all the fighting they do in that, I know the bow and arrow is 100% correct. Mm-hmm. I know they did a lot of training on that beforehand.
A lot of training and a lot of stunt work to be able to pull a bow properly.
Yeah, and the way they used the weapons were very. I mean, I don't want to overuse the word correct, but it was very.
Yeah.
It was what it should be. I don't know if there's any other movies. I mentioned Braveheart because that was a big one for a lot of people with the sword fighting. But is there anything else you can think of that's kind of more in the modern era that really brings all these old weapons to light?
You know what a TV show Outlander does, because at least the first 2 seasons take place during the Jacobite Revolution, and so they do the Battle of Culloden, and you get to watch the Battle of Culloden.
Yeah.
You can skip most anything else but the battle scenes. Every female in the room was getting mad at everybody. Every female listener is like, "No, you have to see him without his pants on." But
and there's a lot of that I've noticed.
There is. I mean, it's a good show, but yeah, the battle scenes are really good. I like, especially the Battle of Culloden, because it's pretty accurate to what really happened in the Battle of Culloden. Like there was fog; they couldn't see each other. I mean, it's what happens in a battle like that.
I know we kind of touched on it at the beginning, but Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Those war scenes were amazing.
Yeah. That's one of the highest points of Game of Thrones was their bigger battle
of Bastards,
scenes.
especially.
Yeah, Battle of Bastards. Yeah, for sure. I think that in the last 10 years or so, like, that's been probably one of the best ones done.
I think some of my favorites is because there are some movements that are elegant and there's some choreography that is elaborate, but for the most part it is just the visceral hack and slash that I think would have been present. It was Vikings. The fight scenes the show Vikings. The fight scenes in that are remarkable.
And yes, we're going to have an episode of that coming up soon.
The other one, and I just binged it, The Witcher. The fights in The Witcher are really good.
Fantastic.
Too. Yeah. Some of the stunt choreography in that, like the fight he has in the first season or the first episode with can't remember her name, Renfrey. That's some amazing stuff.
And there's the one where and I'm going to do this without spoiling, he's walking through a group of about 5 or 6 guys just merciless.
Yeah. It's the stunt choreography. You can tell that they spent a lot of time to make sure it was correct, because it's good.
So do you want realism when you're watching this stuff, or do you want entertainment?
I want a mix of both.
Yeah.
I think a mix of both. I would lean more towards entertainment, because I do know how a lot of, not as well as like Tim, who we talked about earlier, but I do know how a lot of the weapons were wielded properly, and it's just not fun to watch. You know, like no one wants to see the points of the blades bound up. They want those high arcing, swinging around the head, rolling over each other's backs. You know, like that's the fights that people want.
Swinging for the fences.
So so when I choreograph very stylized.
So you choreograph like more of a Princess Bride?
Yeah, I mean, I'm nowhere near that good. But the thing that I will say that is a huge compliment is that people who know fights know my fights. They see it and they go, "That's a Sean fight." And then I once asked, "How did you know?" And they said, "Because you're never just choreographing a fight. There's a story. There's, you can see the series of events unfolding and things like that." So,
well, I mean, even with taking weapons out. WWF wrestling, that is what you're watching. You're watching a story, and that's, I mean, you have the weapon or you don't have the weapon, but it's the same concept basically. I think
even when I do hand-to-hand combat stuff in shows, I bring Sean or I bring Brandon in, because I'm not skilled to the level that they are, and I know if I bring them in, my actor's going to be safe, but it's also going to look good at the same time.
So
and there are other. Drew Yanamori is great.
I usually
TJ Larson
Brandon
is
come in.
great. McClanahan is fantastic.
Yeah,
so we're saying
usually
Sean
have
is
him.
available for hire if you are putting on a play in Vegas
Yeah.
to choreograph your fights.
Yeah.
I would venture to say that I trained Brandon.
You did.
So yeah.
You did. I think you weren't available when I needed to do shows.
No, that's
so
awesome. He's
Brandon
great.
was like, I'll come do it. Okay.
great.
I'll make
Yep.
you cookies. Come on.
Nice. Okay, let's move.
Wait a minute, cookies?
There were cookie involved.
Brandon, you're out.
So let's go eat some cookies and get on to our listener feedback.
And now, let's see what all of our geek rock stars have to say.
Okay, so for our listener feedback today, we asked the question, what is your favorite era or genre of weapons and why? And yes, we allowed fictional or non-fictional because it's a little different from what we're talking about. So, hey, let's mix it up a little bit. So, with that being said, I did ask why. So, I think there's a few of these that aren't going to be read because of that. And, and that's Courtney's fault. You can text
Blame
her
me.
and get mad at her.
Yep, them's the rules, folks. If you don't write why, I'm not going to read you on the air. There are a few that said that. So first off, let's start with Trevor Reason. He said definitely between the very late 1890s all the way through the 1960s for certain. Wooden furniture and blued steel really give that classic look. Also, it seems that they were far more different options, whereas today everyone just seems to copy everyone else. And he said he's specifically referring to firearms in that particular case. Tyler Romaine says weapons made out of necessity. I'm a big fan of the apocalyptic genre, so those strike a chord with me, but I'm talking the ones that make sense and serve their purpose well. Nobody has time for the tactical factor when marauders are closing in.
That's actually a really interesting concept because that, at the heart of it, that is what we're talking about is all these weapons had to be improvised to start.
Yep, that's a great comment. And then our own PB&Jason said, due to the Asian expansion set in Dungeons & Dragons, Far East weapons such as katanas, sais, nunchucks, and bow sticks are his favorite. Basically every weapon used in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Including running on the tips of trees?
I'm including Michelle Yao in that because that woman is a weapon unto herself. And apparently David Squires agrees with me. Tyler also said he's back with his weapons are necessary, but he agrees with Jason, especially about size and nunchucks and whatnot. And for all honesty, that is literally all the listener feedback we have because the rest of you forgot to put why.
I do have to. I'm going to add one that someone added. I don't remember who it was, but they did. What's her name from Serenity?
Oh, that was Ivalani.
That was Ivalani.
Yep, she just said River Tam beating up Reavers with her sword, but she didn't tell me why.
Yeah, but I do want to mention it because that
We did like it, yeah.
As far as a human being that is a weapon,
There's another one, yeah.
that was created as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it was, but I saw someone else talked about the human as a weapon, such as Lilo from The Fifth Element. I don't know if that was in our Twitter or what.
Well, he mentioned Lilo, but he didn't.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
Tell
an
me
interesting
why.
thing to.
I think this kind of counts. It wasn't official listener feedback, but TC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, TC wanted to bring up the fact that Japanese non-edged weapons, tonfa and nunchuk staff, were wrought from threshing and farming tools, and he wanted to comment that it was a massively relevant factor to the conversation. So I wanted to make sure we mentioned.
Actually,
Yay.
really is. Actually, let's go into that for a minute because weapons that come
Oh, I
out of
didn't see that.
necessity
Thank you.
from what you already work with, those will be the best weapons because you are familiar with how to use this tool already.
Yeah.
Like
what
a
it
thresher
does.
or whatever.
Yeah.
If we want to start getting in a martial mindset, I believe that it's not the weapon, it's the person that's weaponized. You know what I mean? Like it's exactly that. Like you should be able to defend yourself with whatever you have at hand or your own body. These things just make it easier, and then it's like, oh, well, that long pointy thing worked really, really well. When I stuck it into the soft thing that screams and bleeds, I won. So let's make more of those.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
so I love that idea.
Yeah.
And there were some really great answers, like they said, blasters and lightsabers. I mean, other than they're cool, there's probably not a reason why, but the majority of it seemed to be basically katanas and whatnot. Because we had several people comment about katanas.
Well, let's be honest. We all grew up with the Ninja Turtles.
True.
Yeah. I mean, anytime
and Mortal Kombat.
Anytime you see a katana displayed in any kind of genre too, it's just an elegant weapon, from the use in Kill Bill to Michonne in Walking Dead. Like it's always just such a badass weapon.
To Kevin Costner in The Bodyguard.
Wow.
Even in
I would like
Highlander.
to point out the girl did mention that.
Even isn't the Highlander's weapon
A sword.
It's a katana,
Yeah,
though,
it's
right?
katana, yeah.
So even in that,
Is it?
yeah,
It's the
Blade
one.
is another one.
It's got the ivory dragon handle.
yeah,
did not
it's
know
given
that.
to him by Sean Connery.
I knew it was given to him by Sean Connery, but I didn't know it was a katana.
Yeah,
I have to fully admit I couldn't get into Highlander either.
Are any of you guys kind of very knowledgeable on katanas of the different kinds? I'm not. Though.
I
was
just know
kinda
Mulan
curious.
has one.
Well, because I know that they have like very tactical ones now. That the black fiberglass ones. I don't know if you guys have seen all that. It's very similar to if you watch the movie Blade. What he uses.
Yeah.
It's a katana, but I guess technology has improved upon it. They've taken a lot of the weight out of it by the bloodlines. Only there's holes all the way through them.
Okay. Yeah.
And that helps with the weight factor and everything else.
I start to wonder, like, at what point does that throw the balance off? Because there needs to be
Some weight.
a balance point, usually between the handguard up to about the first eighth of the weapon. Your balance point should be somewhere in there. So,
That you can stick it on your finger
Yeah.
and let it sit there.
yeah.
I'd say this is stuff that, I have a lot of swords, but they're very decorative and just cheap.
Yeah.
Because they're fun. I like them because they look cool,
That's what
not
mine
because
are.
it's ever going to save my life. But it's very interesting finding some of the practical things on. So, is what you're saying with the balance? Does that help you swing faster, or is that just help your general fighting balance?
So
or
if the weapon is point heavy, you have it's harder to control the point because you're fighting with it. If it is hilt heavy, if like your nut or your pommel or any of those are adding additional weight, then your point work is loosey-goosey, right?
Gotcha.
So I do know that one of the training exercises that was an old school method for the lunge and thrust with fencing was to put a wine bottle on a table and to be able to thrust into the mouth of the wine bottle, into the neck of the wine bottle. And so, I mean, if you don't have excellent point control and everything going for you, you're not going to be able to pull that off. So I can definitely, I mean, I'm not like, this is 6 ounces out of balance, but I can pick up a sword and I can tell you if it's point heavy or pommel heavy.
Well, honestly, the technology in building these weapons really are kind of snapshots into where you are as a society when they get invented. I mean, that's very interesting how that, that's a lot of mathematics. That's a lot of just everything that it takes to build a modern society goes into these weapons. That's why it's, I believe, really important to study all these older weapons, because you get to know what's going on.
And like you're saying, and it's brilliant, like what it takes to craft those weapons as well. So I've been able to field forge some knives, which was awesome. And I remember when I got to the point where I had to quench the blade, I was looking down at it and I said, okay, so we just right into the oil. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, this is where Japanese sword masters pray. Right, because
they crack,
because they'll break, and there's actually a video online that's awesome where you get to see a guy quench a katana in a big it's a big plexiglass box, so you can see what happens.
And
it's
so
that's
cool.
Wow.
So and just the fact that that someone was like, what we should do is we should heat that up and fold it over and smack it into itself like 100 times, and then what happens then? It's just brilliant.
Yeah, who thinks of that?
What if we sharpen that a little bit?
Yeah.
What if we put a handle on it? Yeah. Very cool.
That's very interesting. Okay, let's move on to our main event.
Now it's time for the main event.
Okay, so for our main event today, we wanted to discuss our top 5 favorite pre-modern era weapons and why, because, well, we have to, since we're on the mic, we have to say why, because otherwise Courtney will stop you.
I will.
And yell at you, why?
I will.
I want to hear her say that at some point today.
Why?
Because that'll make me happy. Okay, so for my number 5, I picked, because of the Ninja Turtles, and it was my favorite weapon in the Ninja Turtles, and there's just something that's very almost romantic about it, is the bow staff. The long stick that looks, it's a straight shepherd's staff. There was just something that's just, I always thought it was cool as a kid. I'm like, oh, you can take this, you can put it in between somebody's legs and flip them over your head, and there's just something that's very cool about that. That's very, and it's not, I think you could kill somebody with it, but it's not necessarily lethal. So as a kid, it's kind of fun, if that makes sense. So, but that's my number 5.
Nice.
Very nice. My number 5 is the Claymore, just because it's so bloody big.
It's so cool. I mean, if you can wield one, you are a stud.
I went to the Ren Fair and they had one, and she's like, "Do you want to pick it up?" I'm like, "This thing's bigger than I am." It literally, I think, the end of the pommel came to my shoulder. I'm 5'3". Anybody out there in listener land who's wondering how tall that is? But yeah, they're just big, massive weapons that I just can't imagine someone
I cannot.
Yeah.
I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it. But there's one that is taller than that. They average 7 to 8 feet, and the whole point of them was to be able to take off the horse's head and the rider.
Yeah, they're
in one
just
stroke.
Massive.
Yeah, that's not
massive
Scottish.
Weapons.
That was probably definitely Scottish.
Massive weapons.
Nice.
My number 5, and I have no idea if this was even a practical thing, but you see it in like movies all the time, is the cane sword. So putting a tiny dagger or sword inside of a cane and just whipping it out so as like a form of like espionage and like assassinary.
Yeah.
They're cool.
They're impractical as hell, but they're cool.
Yeah,
they are.
Sean's
biggest-
face right now, listeners, is like, oh,
The
boy,
biggest
I'm gonna
problem.
teach you
No.
something.
They're awesome. They're awesome, and I think like having that ready, and it's like a viper sting, like a rattlesnake. But the tang on them is always garbage. The amount of the blade that goes into the handle. So I mean, someone with a strong enough kick could snap one, but other than that, and there are ones that are well made, but
Yeah.
most of the time they're not. So.
Well, it's a aesthetically cool.
Yeah, no,
decorator
it's
piece.
cool, for
It's
sure.
it's something that you're never going to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Unless you're a
super cool.
Kingsman.
Yeah, but I think they have a little more money to put into
And
theirs.
I still have my theories as to whether or not Blythe is a Kingsman too.
He might be. I
Well,
don't
no,
know.
we
He's
need
not-
to explore that for a second.
He's not dressed very dapper, though.
Ever.
He's undercover.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't.
Always, constantly.
I couldn't do it every day, or else you'd know.
Oh, I
That's
know
right.
you're a Kingsman.
That's
Can you
right.
tie a full Windsor? I'm just curious.
Brogues, not Oxfords.
So my 5 is the karambit, which is a hooked reverse grip fighting knife, and it's when it's combined with grappling techniques, it is awesome. They call it stealing skill because the point of the blade is to cut tendons.
Oh.
So like if I can cut a tendon in your shoulder,
That's
you don't have that arm anymore. It's over.
So visually, is this kind of like Wolverine claws?
No, think more hooked. Think more bird beak. Like the whole shape of the blade is very crescent moon, and then at the end of the handle, it's got a ring for your finger, and it's held in a reverse grip.
And how big are we talking here?
Different sizes, but usually right around entirety of the blade is right around 6-7 inches.
Oh, so it is literally as close a weapon as you can get.
Yeah, it's to get in and to grapple. So if you think figure 4 arm bar, and now all of a sudden you've got that blade at the end of it. So and that blade is usually lined up with some kind of tendon or artery or something, and then it's one last little flick.
What's the
So if anybody wants to get me one of those for my birthday, it's coming up in June. That'd be
really
a fun
awesome.
little tool.
what's the origin of it? Do you know?
I'm not 100% sure. I would not. I think I know, but I would not want to expound and be wrong.
It looks, the design is very Arabic. Mm-hmm. If I think that's where you wanted to go on it.
I believe it might be Philippines too.
Okay.
Oh, I can see it being a
Okay.
Philippine.
Yeah,
I was just curious.
Very interesting.
I like to know where they kind of come from.
sure. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, my number 4 is the most neutral weapon you'll ever see in your life, the Swiss Army knife. You like how he did that? You catch that?
Yeah.
No, honestly, another brilliant piece of technology. They took like every kind of blade that you could possibly imagine, including a toothpick and a fork and knife and everything else, and jammed it into one little compact package. There's improvements on it now with, I don't know if you guys know what a Leatherman is. It's like it's a Swiss Army knife with pliers.
My best friend has one.
Yeah, it comes from the Swiss Army knife, and that is, it's just a really good daily tool that still survives, 200 years later, and it was made for the field so that you would have everything to survive if you got stuck out. And I think it's a really it's smart, and it's so Swiss. It's, as I say, it's neutral. That was my joke, but it is a survival, not a aggressive. It's defensive, not a aggressive weapon. And I think it's like going back when I was talking about learning about a people, you learn about the weapon, and that's a lot of that.
Just a real quick side note, because I'm such a nerd about this, I'm sorry, but with Swiss Army knives, I totally agree. However, there's two companies that make them. Mm-hmm. There's Wenger and there's Victorinox. My experience is having field tested many Swiss Army knives.
That's
Victorinox
kind of like your
is
weapon
better.
of choice, I would think.
Leatherman is my go-to, but I do usually carry a Swiss Army knife, and the Swiss Army knife Victorinoxes are always better. So make sure when you get one that you look and see that it has the Victorinox logo on it. They're better metal.
So and I'm sure that I'm offering this to our listeners. If you do have any questions on this kind of stuff, Sean is actually a really good resource.
Yeah, I'll do my best, and if I don't know, I definitely know people who know far more than I do.
So this is the kind of guy Sean is. He'd probably love to help you out with any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Our resident survivalist. My number 4, I'm going to say it wrong because I don't speak ancient Egyptian.
Shame on you.
I know. It's the Kopesh, which is the Egyptian curved sword. So think of the movie.
Is that similar to the Persian curved sword?
Yeah, they're not made of metal. They're usually made of onyx.
Oh, wow.
And they basically look like a C with a handle. Mm-hmm. So if you've seen any of the mummy movies, it's usually what the guards have in their hand. But it was usually obsidian or onyx, and it was sharpened to like a deadly point where they could slice through skin and slice off arms and stuff.
Well, going back to what Todd said earlier about that is a tool, that's a threshing tool. And that was a threshing tool that evolved into a weapon.
And I'm such a giant nerd. I'm sorry. But obsidian, you can flint knap it. I actually know how to flint knap, and it gets down to the micro edges can literally get down to a molecule thick. They literally split between the cells, and there were surgeons for a long time before lasers that would use them on people's eyes because they don't scar.
Really?
They would make obsidian scalpels. In
Dragon Glass.
Snowpiercer. Yeah, Dragon Glass, but in Snowpiercer, if any of you have if you've read that, there's the guy who has the knife blades out of obsidian that are a molecule thick, and everyone thought it was science fiction, and it's not. Like, those are real. They're called micro edges.
And when Egyptian doctors did surgery, the knives that they used were made from obsidian.
That's
because
so cool.
they could just get in there because
that is crazy.
When honed down, it can be deadly.
I'll tell you what, if people listen to this and comment on one of the social media platforms and would like me to do this, I will do a video of me knocking off a micro edge and showing it out of obsidian.
Yes.
The gauntlet has been thrown, listeners. This would be a pretty cool video. I'm going to do it just so I can see it.
My number 4, and this is similar to Dub. This came straight from Ninja Turtles, is the Sai. Watching, I think that was my first look into something that someone that was wielding like two of the same weapon, like that double-handed weapon, and it's just they look super cool. Him using that, learning about them later in life, you learn that they're more of like a defensive weapon than they are an offensive one.
Yeah, they're blunt, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a blunt weapon. They were actually used by Japanese police as a form of crowd control.
Yeah. Oh, well, I can see why that would be a really smart tool.
I see a police officer coming at me with a Sai. I'm going to walk back. I'm going to do what he says.
Yeah.
Well, I would hope you'd do that anyway.
Because I like my arms intact. Depends on what I'm doing. Maybe I like to live on the edge. I don't.
I don't know why my brain is hearing weird things, but Courtney sounded like a comic book special effect. Your last one sounded like what should be inside of the giant circle. Right? And then yours, I heard sigh as an SIGH, and I was like, I'm so. Okay, I got you now. My number 4 my number 4 is a trident. Because the most
because
fun.
Of Aquaman?
Well, yes.
One of the most fun fights I've ever choreographed was a fight with a trident, and it was so much fun.
Very cool.
How hard do those have to be to train with?
Oh, there's
a lot of weight to them. They're
awkward. They're awkward, but they were a big gladiator weapon, and gladiators would not have picked them regularly if they were not incredibly lethal. So yeah,
nice,
cool.
Okay, my number 3 is kind of the precursor to the gun, honestly, without gunpowder, would be the longbow. Just it's a weapon that shoots a projectile over a distance, and so you are safer while the other person is not.
Literally, some guy on a hill just said, "I want to kill that guy, but he's so far away, and I don't want to go over there."
I think I'm going to create technology.
There you go.
Yeah, well, longbows are not easy to create, so you kind of got to take the laziness side out of it.
Yeah. I've actually I would not consider myself a bowyer, but I've made several survival bows. It takes from start to finish, it takes 30 hours just to string the bow before you even start tillering, before you even make the draw even. Like, man, yeah.
Just try compound bow. That's even better.
Impressive.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, the strength those take, everyone thinks it's easy, just pull it back. No, it takes a tremendous amount of strength in a longbow to make it happen.
It looks so easy in the movies. That's why people think it's so easy to
Green Arrow is fiction.
Yeah, to pull a bow in general. Because I've shot bows and arrows. One time I've used a compound bow and I thought I was going to pull my shoulder out. But I've
got too big a one.
Yeah, I've pulled longbows and whatnot. And if anybody in Vegas is curious, there's always a station set up at the Ren Fair that shows you how to shoot a bow if you'd like.
Cool.
I don't know how accurate it is.
Cool. That's awesome.
That's one of the places I've done it. But they think the people see it on TV and they think it's so easy to do, and it's no joke.
Nope.
My number 3, and this is apologies to all my Hindu-speaking people out there, the Bagnach, which is the Indian tiger claws.
That's the Wolverine thing.
Yeah, they're kind of like brass knuckles almost, but instead of it being the outside weapon, it's inside on the palm of your hand, and it's literally like the claws of Wolverine or the claws of a tiger. They're not very big. They would use them in wrestling. They would use them in hand-to-hand combat because you could strike at somebody's face, like you're gonna slap them and just tear their face to shreds. Yeah, with the claws. So.
I don't know if anybody knows. I know it's an offshoot of those. Whatever Savio Vega used in Street Fighter. He had the very similar claws, but I know they were a lot longer.
Yeah.
Do you know if those are offshoot, or does anybody know anything about those?
Know.
I think just got me thinking about that.
Yeah, I believe the Bagnach you wear the claws are close to the palm of your hand, whereas like with brass knuckles and Wolverine and that thing, it's on the knuckle. Top hand. Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if the tiger claws, they actually were on the outside as well, but it's more because I've seen guys fight with them. You have to actually hold your hand like a tiger paw in order to get them to stay on your hand, and it gives you the most range of mobility. So that's why they're literally just called tiger claws.
Nice.
Yeah, I could be totally 100% wrong on this, but I look at it and I think that having blades that extend past your knuckles would be really actually quite a problem. In most cases, like you're just limiting your reach, you're limiting your grasp, there's so much you can't do. There's all this risk of cutting yourself. So I think that we don't really see those occur much actually in combat. Not that I've seen, but I could be totally wrong on that.
Not that we all go into combat with with medieval weapons.
Right.
My number 3 is actually bones. Just from prehistoric, kind of what we were talking about earlier, using something as a weapon from necessity is...
Well, that's the first spears.
Exactly.
Knives.
A lot of the first tools in general were made from animal bones. Just when you had that kill where you made it for food, you used every piece of the animal from the skin down to the bones to make tools and weapons eventually.
Yeah, that's so cool. My one of my flint knapping teachers, Nevada Joe, is an archaeologist, and he the jewel in his crown was he found a 50,000-year-old mammoth bone dagger.
Cool.
I can't even imagine holding
That's
that kind of
amazing.
history.
Oh my gosh,
you
that's
know?
amazing.
Yep. My number 3 is the lightsaber.
Nice choice.
No, we're talking about
Agree.
prehistory.
Yes, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. I'm saying long probably qualifies as
You're
pre
stretching
1911. No, I mean,
I'd say
I'm,
give it to him.
come on, and also lightsaber dubs.
No, I really want to disagree with you, but like I was saying,
Yeah, 'cause it's too cool.
That is the first sword play that we did as kids. Is when we all had our lightsabers,
All of
beat
us-
the crap out of each other with.
And all of us were experts at.
Heck yeah.
Well, no, I had one of the ones with the pipes. You put the flashlight in it,
Oh, yeah.
and when you go through the air, it would sound like.
Yeah.
We use wrapping paper tools.
I actually watched a documentary recently where they talked about the fight between Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, and Darth Maul, and how they really learned how to use, like, because it was the first time that you had a real choreographed lightsaber fight, because in the old Star Wars movies there wasn't much to their lightsaber fights.
Nope. Yeah.
But this was the first time that they actually had to choreograph a
Yeah.
fight. And that scene where Ewan McGregor is like behind the laser wall and he's just kind of like bouncing, like getting himself psyched up, like that was him getting psyched up for this fight that was actually
He's
Yeah.
such a Star Wars nerd.
Yeah. And then and I'm blanking on his name, but the actor who played Darth Maul was brought in to choreograph it, and he literally made the fight so hard that they had to cast him as Darth Maul because he was the only one to do it. That was his intention.
Yeah.
There's also a really
Smart.
great video that I'll try to remember to link that references that, and it's the whole Anakin, I've got the higher ground fight, and what he's saying
My
is that
favorite
he's
meme.
actually referencing that previous fight where he watched him try to flip over the top of the opponent's head. So he was like, I know what Anakin is about to do because it's what a Jedi would do in this moment. So he was telling him, I'm a step ahead of you.
Yeah.
Like, I know what you're about to do, you know? And I just thought that was really cool.
Nice.
So,
But I'll let you have it, but we got to admit the Ben Solo saber stupid.
Yeah, but that's because they went for this is cool looking.
It
and
wasn't even cool
not-
looking. It was stupid. Anyway, so my number 2 is another weapon that comes from practical use that just became literally one of the most brutal weapons in history, honestly, and that is the Viking battle axe. The smaller one, not the two-edged one, but it had the spike in the back and the edge in the front. That was an absolutely brutal tool because it could kill people in so many different ways. It could get through armor with the spike, and then you can do the broad swinging for the fences with it. And it was, and as I say, it came from having a weapon that was used to cut down trees. Well, let's cut down people.
it was a multi-tool of death.
It was the first Swiss Army knife. It was a Leatherman.
Ray Park is the
Ray Park, thank
is
you,
Darth
thank
Maul,
you.
because it was making me crazy because I had to look it up. My number 2 is the chakram. And yes,
what?
The chakram. I know everybody's out there going, oh, well, Xena is made up. It's not actually made up. It's actually an Indonesian fighting tool that they cribbed for Xena, the warrior princess. And it's literally the round knife thing that she throws. The first season is kind of, the first couple of seasons are kind of messed up. The second season, when she gets the one that comes apart into 2 swords, that is actually more traditional to what a chakram really is. I was just a big Xena fan.
Very cool.
That's cool.
my number 2 is along the same vein as the bones, and it sticks. Again,
Yeah.
one of those things that
You've been playing too much Minecraft.
can make anything out of the world. Just one of those things where out of necessity we were using them for tools, and like you said earlier, you find out that you can poke the pointy end into the skin and you win.
The soft thing that screams and bleeds.
Exactly. and then
Falls down.
therefore it becomes a weapon.
Nice.
It's awesome. My number 2 is cape and dagger. I just
Cape
think
and dagger.
Cape and dagger, and they were used together. So it was a usually a longer dagger, and it was used with the cape. And so the whole idea was to strike from cover, to strike from subterfuge.
Oh,
so
okay, yeah.
you would
Pull out
flip
from
cape in
behind.
their
Well, that's
eyes.
where Batman, his whole
Cape
thing comes from, right?
Yeah, but it was, you would whip the cape for their eyes. You would obscure, like wrap it around their heads, things like that. Or it would be literally like if you think the Dracula pose in front of you, you have no idea where I'm going to jab from.
Yep.
You have no idea where I'm targeting. So Cape and
Misdirection.
Dagger was
Interesting.
just really, really, really cool fighting.
Very cool.
Really elegant.
Okay, let me. I have two that I want to mention real quick because we're almost done. But I wanted to I just want to hit the catapult, which
a
was
good one,
just
yeah.
brilliant, and
Trebuchet.
the just basically the defensive techniques that they used for castles. With the wall system, with the trapping systems that they had, was just absolutely brilliant. I don't know if anybody else had any honorable mentions. No.
Nope.
Just flint-net blades, which I talked about earlier.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number one is going to be the crossbow, which is the first gun. It's the longbow turned into a more powerful weapon. I've always wanted one, never had one, but yeah, it's just a very cool, elegant weapon.
My number one is called the Le Omano.
Can you pronounce any of your weapons today?
This one I actually pronounced correctly.
Okay.
Le Omano. It literally means ring of shark or shark ring. It is basically it's a type of axe. It's a Hawaiian warrior weapon. You guys have probably seen it a bunch of times. It's basically a flat paddle made out of koa wood, which is a very, very strong type of wood. And the outer edge of the paddle is ringed with shark teeth.
Interesting.
That's why it's like ring or wreath, because lei is like a necklace. It means necklace or wreath, and mano just means shark. So it's literally a shark ring that these guys would just beat the snot out of each other with.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, interesting fact, koa wood make great basses and guitars.
Yeah, it's very, very,
Very good for
versatile wood.
instruments.
Yeah, very versatile wood. Very strong wood.
From the beginning of time,
Oh boy.
we have been using this technology to eat, to dig, to destroy our enemies.
Our hands.
The Rock.
Do you
smell what the Rock is cooking?
Yes, from the dawn of time, he has been
Dwayne
around.
Johnson
So
from the
glad I
beginning
didn't
of
have to do it.
time.
I'm so glad you guys did it.
Somebody had to.
Dwayne Johnson from the beginning
I
of time.
love it.
And,
Oh, you just ruined his whole deal.
No.
and I'm done. No, that was the lie. Thank
No,
you
I
guys
could not
for
agree
covering
with you
the
more,
lie.
though.
And we've touched on it a few times with the mentioning of obsidian and things like
Yeah.
that. Just
type of rock.
just stonework, rocks, minerals in general is something that we as a species have just used for everything to tools to weapons.
Cool.
And my number one is the Bastard Sword. And the Bastard Sword is the handle on the Bastard Sword is designed to be hand and a half. So it is the first sword that was kind of, so if you imagine when you were gripping it, your ring finger and your pinky finger on the back hand would not be on the blade. The rest of it would be.
Okay.
So it was the first weapon that could be wielded both single-handed or double-handed. And you
Depending
could
on the grip
modify
you
in
needed.
between.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and it's just if we have to pick swords, I'm going to pick that because I get two swords in one. So that would be my number one.
And it's the
Nice.
first sword you ever find in any good D&D campaign.
That's right. You are correct, sir.
You are
Until
correct,
the
sir.
rust monster gets it.
Very cool. That was a cool show, guys.
Yeah.
Listeners, if you have any feedback on weapons we might have missed, let us know on our show notes.
And don't forget, if you guys comment, Sean will do a cool video
I will.
about, what was it? Flint?
I will flint napping. I will
Flint-napping.
flint nap a micro edge out of obsidian.
Yep.
And if you're watching this on YouTube or not watching it on YouTube, go to YouTube, subscribe, and like this video and comment.
Yes.
That helps
Yes,
us
please do.
out a lot. We start to get a little more traction on our YouTube stuff.
I would
Yeah.
like to mention as well that this is our first post podcast with over 100 subscribers. So thank you guys so much.
Thank
We
you,
appreciate
guys.
you guys showing up and helping us with that. So now, if you are wanting to share the podcast on YouTube with your friends, all you have to do is type in youtube.com/iHeartGeekShow and you will take them straight to us. No more crazy character URLs.
I feel like we're kind of cool now.
That's awesome.
So until next time, I'm Dub.
I'm Miss Geeky Paige.
I'm Blyze.
I'm Sean.
Keep on geeking on. Nobody has nothing?
You have been listening to the latest episode of the iHeart Geek Show. Make sure you visit our website at www.iheartgeekshow.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you check us out on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And keep on geeking on to all of you geek rock stars.